Hit it, hit it, hit it. All right, hello and welcome in everyone to the GGG Podcast, episode 67, 2 episodes away, counting down to the big payoff that we've strove for. Strove? Is that the past tense of strive? I guess.
I think it's strong.
Great. let's go with that. But yes, thank you for tuning in to the podcast. Please, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the GGG Podcast on our YouTube channel. Please do so. And if you're listening to the audio-only version on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, like us and follow us over there as well. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Phil. Phil, are you having a good week? Is it a video game week? Is it not a video game week? What is the vibe as we're deep into February now?
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty video game week, I'd say. I got I've been sick, which was, terrible.
Good. You feeling better though?
Playing Avowed, which I paid to play early. Like I got the extra fancy version on Game Pass.
Sure.
But then I got so sick that I didn't even have enough energy to sit in my game chair and play video games without falling asleep.
Wow.
So didn't get to play as much of it as I'd liked. But between that and Marvel Rivals, as I'm sort of like knocking quests out, preparing for the mid-season update, those have been my main two haunts. And, it's some ever-present magic in my life. That's about it.
Okay. Right on. Yeah, similarly, like I think I've pretty much been playing 3 games, still Marvel Rivals, and then Civ 7, which, I talked about a little bit last week, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I've gotten some more time with the game, so that's been good. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with that game. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an abusive girlfriend or something.
That's the appropriate relationship to have in that game. It beats you up, and then it's like, but doesn't this feel good? You found a sword. It's not special.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of crap sword.
Just a piece of crap, because you're just a guy in that game. You're just a dude. Yeah. That's the vibe. So, I don't know. I really like the game, but I think it's really weird. It makes you think, because I'm, a pretty hardcore gamer. Yeah, I should say so if we're doing this podcast. But I feel like I approach games with this perspective of, I know how video games work. I know how video game logic works. And in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, that's just not. It's like, we want you to use real world logic.
Yeah.
And that's pretty, I don't know. It's cool, but it's really forcing me to reorient.
Yeah. Well, it's real world logic and also logic of that time.
Yeah.
And if you piss somebody off, you do have to steer clear of them for a few days.
Oh, I haven't gotten to that part yet, but I was doing the mission of trying to get your dog back at the beginning, and I found the guy who was being attacked by wolves. Minor spoiler alert. Have you done this mission?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I did the whole mission. Huge pain in the ass, by the way. Especially that bandit camp. I was not ready for that in any capacity. And so I did that, saved him, did the whole thing, got back to his house, and his wife was like, "Oh my God, thank you for saving my husband, yada, yada, yada. Please sleep here if you need to sleep here." And I was obviously badly injured from the bandits, and so I was like, I'm just going to go sleep right now, get my health back. And so I went into their house and went to sleep. And
then you woke up and they're like, what the hell's wrong with you?
What the hell's wrong? Yeah, exactly. And that is stupid. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I guess they were referring to, I can sleep in the barn.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which is also kind of messed up to do to someone who just saved your husband's life.
Yeah. And it's like, I feel like if you are going to enforce that mechanic, then you have to make the NPCs intelligent enough to be like, I meant the barn, instead of me having to pay her off so she doesn't report me for a crime. Or similarly, that's my biggest issue, is the sleeping thing. It's like, I was like, oh, I need to go sleep somewhere. I'm going to go back to that woman in the woods. And
same thing happened to me.
Exactly.
Because it even says on the map, your bed, when you had woken up there last.
Yes, but it goes away and now that it's gone, it doesn't count as your base. So that's a little frustrating, and it is reminding me of like, okay, this is not a triple A big game. There are some flaws with it. So it's very entertaining, very compelling game to play because stuff like that happens, but it is also frustrating at the same time. So I don't know. The people who are saying this is like, I don't know, over a 90 on the Metacritic score or something, I think that's a bit of a stretch. I think you're ignoring some of the flaws in the game.
I will say that game does a really interesting thing where you have to learn so much and like kind of through repetition, like in some instances redo some fights over and over and over again and redo some bits over and over and over again, that you get that like Lion King on the Sega Genesis level good at something where you've just memorized like, okay, I have to fight these 3 guys, I know, just target one of these guys, do this thing. When I ride up to this camp, I got to ride up on this side so they don't catch me immediately.
Yeah.
So I feel like the game forces you to learn a lot, and that's the magic that a lot of people, I feel like, get caught up with in the game.
Yeah.
But it is also, I think, kind of, we're coming halfway to the mirror, or a little bit more than halfway for some of its faults. But I guess that's the beauty of game making. Like, is it an incomplete thing, or is it just like beckoning us to come play it and to learn more about it?
Yeah.
And I don't know.
No, I mean, I agree with that sentiment. Like, I think like there's something enticing about having to learn that. I told a friend of mine that I was like, I think there's a little bit, not that the games mechanically are similar, but in how you approach it, it's kind of a little Dark Soulsy because you kind of have to memorize things and you kind of have to adjust to how this game's logic is not the same as a lot of games' logic. So I
you can't really brute force your way through a lot of things.
You cannot. Or I don't know. I didn't pick a soldier at the beginning, but you still lose all your skills. So, but I'm having a good time with it, but I have to play it in bursts or else I'll get a little frustrated. But let's get into our major game releases this week. So the big game that is, officially out is Avowed. From what I've been seeing, like we talked about it a little bit last week because you played it early and whatnot, but people are really taking to this game. They're really liking the combat. Some people are saying that the NPC or the companions are not that enthralling. I know people are upset about like the lack of romance options and stuff like that in the game, but I think this is like a quick and dirty like modern Skyrim is what it feels like, where it's like, hey, we're gonna have engaging combat and we're gonna give you that feel of just playing an RPG adventure. And honestly, something we talked about last year with Dragon Age Inquisition, it's like there's just not a lot of RPGs that come out every year. Again, we've had good RPGs. Baldur's Gate came out in 2023. So like I get that was a huge RPG, but aside from that, it's like we haven't had a great RPG for a while. So I feel like a game that meets certain standards, like Avowed seems to be meeting, is finding success. So yeah. So do you have any more thoughts? Have you gotten more into the game?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many hours I've put in yet. I venture somewhere on the 10 to 12 mark.
Sure.
But the thing that is really interesting to me about the game is it kind of plays like, you said Skyrim. For me, it's almost like their Oblivion. Like it is, it's a little bit more boxed in. It's a little bit less like free roamy.
Sure.
But the attention to detail they put into the story and the characters just feels very, everything feels very like created and original, and like you're finding these new places in a world they completely made up. Granted, it's the Pillars of Eternity world, but there's like just unique architecture, the way that the sort of deities exist, or like as this fungus mycelium network. So your character is a god touched, and you pick a god touched like trait when you're doing your
Sorry.
That's the term.
Sorry. I mean that's a little silly. Come on.
when you make
Show us on the doll where God touched you.
Well, yeah, to show us on the avatar where God touched you, and then you put like different like floral. It's almost like a clicker kind of thing. Like you could have one bit that completely covers your eyes, and it's like wood flora.
Oh wow.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, it's all pretty interesting. And the game does some cool stuff that kind of makes me think it's a different language. Like, so you have those when you're talking to someone, have like different things that you can say to them.
Sure.
And then you'll have certain options that correspond to like having high intelligence, high perception, whatever your background is. And those, if they're highlighted, still might not always be the right thing to say. Because you could say something that is like high perception to a noble and notice something that they don't want noticed about themselves, and then they will get angry at you for noticing it.
Oh,
So it's not
okay.
like an instant unlock to like a shortcut through the conversation.
Okay.
It is still, you have to be like really thought out about how you say your stuff.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, it's kind of I would say similarly, Kingdom Come Deliverance does that a bit as well.
Yeah.
But like I think that's great because I think as far as like RPG, pick your dialogue conversation structure has gone, there really hasn't been any innovation in that for a very long time. It's like I feel like Mass Effect kind of defined it as, well, if you're a really good guy or if you have this skill leveled up, you can say this one thing that you can't usually say. But I think actually thinking about your situation, or like in Kingdom Come Deliverance in the opening sequence, like I said that I was a scribe, and then the conversation went on, and then they were like, oh well, we have these bandits we're going after, and we were like, well, we can go after the bandits for you, and they were like, you're not a soldier, you just said you're a scribe. Like why?
Yeah.
Like, and so it's like actually makes you think about what you're actually having a conversation and actually how to approach it. So I think that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Combat's good. Magic feels good. So I'm excited to play more of it. It's Oh, also, let me just say, it is so refreshing to play a Skyrim, Oblivion, Bethesda-like game that is not made by Bethesda and held back by their
Engine.
centuries-old engine. Oh my god. The characters look so good in this. You get a companion early on who's like a scaly fish dude. He looks so cool. And
Yeah.
the graphics just work on him so well. So, yeah, pretty great. I think if you are in the mood for a Bethesda game, because we haven't had a real one in 10 years, this is a great time to play.
Right on. Would you compare it to BioShock at all? Or I mean, I know BioShock's very linear in a sense, but
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily, just because I feel like the themes are closer to just that high fantasy,
right.
and open areas. You're never quite as funneled, and I feel like the story probably isn't as strong. But
Okay.
yeah,
Right on.
yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to us about that, Phil. And we're going to get into the news. Lots of Marvel Rivals news. We got multiple stories about Marvel Rivals this week.
Some good, some bad. They really gave it all to us.
Yeah, they're moving fast. That is their thing. So first up, the big obvious story that you've probably already heard now, but Marvel Rivals is adding they're going into their season 1.5, which I believe comes out officially in
21st.
Yeah, the 21st. But I think there's some certain play testers who have access to the Human Torch and the Thing and whatnot. So that's been cool. So that's going to be coming out. That's very exciting. Along with that, there's going to be many updates to characters. Some characters getting rebalanced, some characters getting nerfed, some characters getting buffed. From what I've seen, I kind of like the changes that they're doing. Like, I'm tired of seeing a Cloak and Dagger every single match, but I get it, because Cloak and Dagger is just one of the best characters in the game, which is
Great healer.
very annoying. Yeah, well, and great damage dealer, and honestly, their ult sucks to deal with. I hate it so much, just because
it's like, hey, do you like standing? Well, you can't do it anywhere here anymore. Get out of
exactly.
here.
And it's like, it heals and does damage, and it's just like, well, everyone else just does one of those things. So how is that fair? But whatever. So that's exciting that we're going to be getting those updates. Now we're going to flip the other side and bring some bad news, and that is that NetEase has decided to lay off one of their teams, specifically their North American team that is based in Seattle. The director there and the entire team have been let go, which is pretty baffling, but there's a lot of misinformation going around online that the entire NetEase team that works on Marvel Rivals is gone, and that's just simply not the case at all.
Yeah.
So it's just the team in Seattle that's been let go, but still very disappointing given that this game is easily the most popular game in gaming right now. Maybe next to Fortnite, it's not, but everything else, it is obviously surpassed Overwatch, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in this episode. But it's disappointing to hear about these layoffs, Phil. How do you feel about this?
I think it's wild that they're laying people off. Like you said, Marvel Rivals is, I would say right now, the most popular game. It's got the zeitgeist under its control. Mm-hmm. Everybody's talking about or playing Marvel Rivals, at least trying it. And typically the way it goes with like working in games is you spend a lot of time working on a game, working for a company, going in day to day, working on a job, and your entire company can be made or broken depending on if that game is good or not. Like, if the game is a flop, your studio might get shut down, and then who knows? Yeah, you have to go start searching for another job, and losing your job is a terrifying and awful thing to happen, and God, so stressful. And the fact that it can happen when you worked on a game that is one of the biggest wins in the industry is also insane. And that's just so that people can make a bit more money at the top. The other thing about this is that allegedly this team that was let go worked on like research and development for things that had to do with like new characters or new sort of like abilities or dynamic level design. So I guess they were like more on the fringes, and maybe it was less driven by exactly what they were producing as much as just like interesting data or like interesting ideas.
Yeah.
So, but I think like the game going forward, even if you're going to rest on your laurels, you're going to need more of those if you want to continue your popularity.
Yeah.
You know?
I honestly, what this started like a gear turning in my brain. For those who don't know, Phil and I have experience in the entertainment industry, and this is kind of reminding me of a little bit of how the film industry works a little bit, where it feels like, oh, well, you work in this industry and you're working on a project, but that doesn't mean you have a career there. It's just like a contract position. And with the amount of layoffs that we've seen, I think, Marvel Rivals is raking in the money. And when you're raking in the money, it doesn't really make sense to trim the fat, because that helped you get to where you are right now. And so like, I feel like with all of these layoffs that we've seen over the last 2 years in gaming, I feel like this is like, well, we just hired you for this one project, for this one game. And instead of keeping you on as a team, if we figure out down the road we did actually need those people, we're just going to hire a new team. We can pay them less because they're going to be new employees, and that's how we keep our margins up. And so I really hate this. I understand that it's only a research and development team and whatnot, but it really doesn't make a lot of sense for what is the most popular game in gaming right now. It really bothers me. And like, these are people that are losing their jobs. Yeah. So it just sucks.
I mean, so here's two, I guess, interesting things, or two semi-positives. Hopefully these people having this on their resume is going to lead to a lot more work in the future.
Very true.
They came up with this concept for this game that's extremely popular. Bring them in. The second, Blizzard could pull the funniest move of all time and hire this entire team to work on Overwatch.
That's brilliant. I think that's exactly what they should do. If they're not calling them immediately, they're not doing their job. That's wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right. Last little bit. Great idea, Phil. Really. Phil Spencer, are you listening, or are you
Yeah.
too busy torching Xboxes?
He's just chucking him on a barge, just trying to get rid of him. Get these things out of here.
All right, last little bit about Marvel Rivals. So this is a little bit of good news. So along with their season 1.5 announcements, they also addressed chrono tokens, which are the things that you earn through the daily challenges that you use to buy things through the battle pass. So they announced if you bought the premium battle pass and have completed the premium battle pass, all the extra chrono tokens that you earn will be able to be converted to units at the end of the season. Now, they didn't specify what the conversion rate was, so I severely doubt 100 chrono tokens are going to convert to units. Units being the actual money that you pay with real world dollars. But this is a great improvement. I love any game that allows you to earn currency that is real world dollars, because ultimately that's what that's all you can buy on the store. So
Yeah.
is using that currency. So I think it's good. I hope it's at least a 2-to-1 ratio. Like if it's 200 chrono tokens, you get 100 units. But I do have my doubts that it will be a lot less than that. So how do you feel about this?
It's interesting. I kind of wish I could just keep my chrono tokens and then just pour them over to the next thing.
Sure.
I know it's probably against the spirit of the game, but I do know that you can keep your your progress in that particular battle pass, because the battle passes are like a permanent thing.
Right.
So it's interesting. I bet you it will be like 100 to 50 or something like that, because they're not super gracious with the way they give away chrono tokens, especially right now. So fingers crossed. It's a decent rate. I'm expecting nothing, so if we get anything, I'll be very happy.
Great. Yeah, that's a great Spider-Man No Way Home over here.
Dude, I can't wait for the Human Torch, the Thing. Apparently, one of the Thing's abilities is that he just can't be moved by like all the abilities that move people around.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's gonna be cool to play a tank that just cannot be like pushed by Black Widow's kick or
Sure.
pulled by Venom's strands. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw Venom's thing doesn't work on him, as well as like Groot's ult doesn't work on him.
Yeah.
It does stop him from moving, but it doesn't
Yes.
pull him into
a clump with the rest.
Yeah, exactly.
That Spider-Man can't move him when he's midair, which is pretty funny.
That's awesome.
Great.
All right. Well, enough about Marvel Rivals. Let's get into some other stuff. So, okay, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, the game I was talking about earlier. So it's doing very well when it comes to sales. So far, according to this, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has sold 2 million copies. Holy hot tamales. So that's a lot.
For them.
Yeah, good for them indeed. As well as they have had 250,000 concurrent players on Steam, which is really good, considering that this game, not quite an indie game, but not a AAA game either. And so I'm very, happy with this. I'm curious to see, like how it continues to do. I think this is going to be like a cult favorite, like game. It definitely seems like it. And I also think that the marketing plan for this game was very well executed.
Totally.
I think that the CGI trailer that they posted, like made for TV and like YouTube and whatnot, it looked really good. It looked enticing. It didn't feel like every other game. It like really captured you're just a dude in the Middle Ages. And I also think Steam, I think they put it on sale on other online platforms as well, but I saw that Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 was like $2 or $3. Like
I saw that as well.
In January, and so I think that it really helped. It allowed people like, okay, $2 or $3, I'll try the first one. Some people got into it, and then they just carried right over into this game. So
yeah,
good.
I think their marketing was very much like trying to give you that implication or direction of like Grand Theft Auto, but in the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages.
Yes,
and I think that's probably how you're not playing the game that way. I'm probably not playing the game that way. But for kids or for people who want to have that experience, probably just the right note, because the game wants you to play it however you want to play it. If you want to steal someone's shoes while they're asleep and have them wake up and freak out, you can do that.
Yeah, you
And I
can.
think that's kind of what the game is selling. Like, have all these wild times on a horse, bro. It's gonna be sick.
I'm out here just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Where's the trough? I need a trough.
Please, I ate too much spoiled fruit.
Yeah, for real. Oh my god, I just throw it all out now. It's like if it's under if it's under 50%, just get rid of it. I'll go buy a chicken. Like. Anyway, all right, Phil, you added this story. What is going on with Mr. Yoshida?
So Shuhei Yoshida, who used to be the lead executive over at Sony PlayStation, was doing an interview recently, and he said that the AA space doesn't exist anymore. That's why the Japan studio was closed down, because there just wasn't a space for the type of game they were producing, which I think you pointed this out before the show. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is kind of a AA game.
It is very much a AA game. And we very tactfully put this story right after our Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 story. And yeah, I disagree with this. And I understand why he said it. So I think what he is saying does have some merit to it. But I just feel like the market for AA games is there. I feel like the financial backing is not. And I think we're seeing the same thing in Hollywood, and across other media, where it's just like big companies, they do not want to gamble, and they see AA as a gamble, even though it's not as big of a financial hurdle as a AAA thing, but they see the upside of a AAA game as being so incredibly high. That's what they want to run with. And so I think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is proof that you can do a AA game. And like, I really didn't know what Kingdom Come Deliverance was before like November. I want to say maybe a little further back than that. And so, yeah, I disagree with this, but I understand, as someone who makes video games and has to have that financial backing, that it is difficult to get people to sign on to that. But I disagree that there's not a market in general. So
I definitely think there's now it feels like there's this space that there's indie games, and then there are the AAAs that need an expo that you go to like experience a bit of the game. Like, I feel like these companies are more excited to do all of the work to show that they are prestige and that their game is going to be prestige, rather than hey, we made this weird game where you're just a guy in the Dark Ages, or hey, we made, was it
Hi-Fi Rush? No,
that was Microsoft just sort of like sneakily being like, we made a cool rhythm game. Don't worry about it. It's on Game Pass. Is anyone playing Game Pass? No. What's that? The Justin Roiland, not a great entry point, but it just came on PlayStation Plus.
I know what you're talking about. The one with the talking guns.
The High Life or something like that. I feel like
High on Life.
High on Life.
Yeah.
That game is a pretty, I think, great example of AA. Like,
yeah.
And unless there is like a big name attached to it, I think a lot of investors don't want to put money into it, and it just becomes this weird spot with games. So I think he's right, but I do foresee the AA space kind of like reigniting now that the AAA space has also, like, if you think about it, Ubisoft and other giants like that are kind of caving or producing a lot less games. I think the AA space is going to swing back in the end of this console generation, the next console generation, and then they will become, AAA companies, and then we'll run out of AA again. It's just going to keep this cycle going. But.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I agree with what you're saying. I think that we're going to see a backlash to companies failing at doing live service, which is really what he's talking about, I feel like, with AAA games. Because I feel like the only AAA games that are actually coming out that are not live service are primarily games that are already attached to a known franchise. And so I feel like with this backlash to companies failing to put out live service games or failing to catch, that you might get more games that come out at like $40-$50, stuff like that. And I would love that, because I think that video games should be different prices. Not all video games should be $70. Not all video games, should be, just a free to play live service thing. You can have somewhere, there is a medium place. Like, look at what Helldivers 2 did. They launched at $40. It's still a live service game, so I don't know.
It's a AA live service game, which is pretty cool.
Helldivers 2 is a AA game, Mr. Yoshida, no offense, but anyway.
Speaking of games that should be AA, you want to take this next story, Paul?
I mean, there's not much to it, but my childhood self felt like I had to put this in the agenda. So apparently there are rumors floating around that there is going to be a new Tony Hawk Pro Skater game, and it is going to be shadow dropped this summer, just in time for the kids to get out of school.
And not get on real skateboards.
Yes, and not get on real skateboards. So, I mean, this is cool. I guess I'm older now, so maybe I'm just not around skater culture, but I just feel like it's not what it used to be, especially in the 90s and 2000s and whatnot. So I don't know if there's a market for this, but maybe it could reignite a new market. Who knows?
I think it's still big amongst, like, kids closer to high school, or like, just people of that age range.
Sure.
But it's not the same like when Tony Hawk was on the Wheaties box.
Yeah.
That it was when we were young and coming up. It's like Saturday morning cartoons, everyone was on a skateboard. Like, it was permeated everywhere. And I think Tony Hawk was one of the four horsemen of the skatepocalypse, where it was a great game. But it just rode the wave of rode the ramp of America's skate craze.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And now it's kind of just a nostalgia thing for the rest of us,
It is. And that is exactly why I put in the agenda, just for nostalgia. So
hey, I hope it's great. I hope it's Tony Hawk Underground, but just completely remade.
Sure.
I'd play that.
Yeah, that sounds great. But yeah, unfortunately, not much else there to unpack from the story. It's a shadow drop. It's rumors. So who knows if it will actually happen, but we will keep our eyes on it. Moving right along, Grand Theft Auto Online, one of the most popular games online ever. Supposedly, after GTA 6 comes out, they will be continuing support for GTA 5 Online, it might be called at that point. If players are still engaged with it. So if there is still a player population, they will continue to support it. I have a suspicion, as being a Red Dead Online player, that it will kind of go the way that Red Dead Online went, where they will keep the servers up, they will continue to do events, they will, continue to put out daily challenges and streaks and everything like that. But you are probably going to see an end of the pipeline as far as content that is coming out for Grand Theft Auto 5 Online. They could add more DLC, but they have added so much to Grand Theft Auto Online already. I have to imagine that they have to be shifting to working on the new game's online features and whatnot.
Listen, man, I hoped that when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, I hoped, hey, maybe they're going to slow down on this, no offense to Grand Theft Auto Online, stupid nonsense, and focus on Red Dead Redemption 2 and give me a cool online cowboy simulator. But they said, no, forget that. We put the gritty in the game, or whatever. I don't know.
When's the last time you played that, man?
Years.
Oh, man.
I just called it stupid nonsense. I'm not a fan.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I have a different question for you, just kind of bouncing off of this story. Do you think Grand Theft Auto 6 will launch alongside Grand Theft Auto Online?
No, I think they'll do the same thing they did with 5, delay it for a bit, have basically a second release for the game, 6 months to a year afterwards, to really like reignite everyone's interest, get all the teenagers online playing that again. I feel like if they do if they do two at once, they have to do two tough launches, not tough launches. They have to do two big launches at the same time, risk messing more up. If they delay one, they have more time to work on online, which is going to take a little bit more work anyways. And then they can show back up in a year after like everyone's kind of died down a little bit, and then light another fire to be like, all this silly stuff you've been doing, now go do it with your friends. And
Sure.
buy the whale card. It'll be $39.95, and it'll get you an in-game color for your Miata or whatever.
Wow. All right. You will not be partaking in Grand Theft Auto 6 online. All right. Heard.
No, man. The 12-year-olds are too good. They headshot me from space. It's upsetting.
Oh, so they got auto aim. Like, I mean, that's how this game
Yeah.
works, right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see how that unfolds. So yeah. All right, our last story before the main topic of this week. So Overwatch season 15 is coming out, and they've been responding, or at least they are attempting to respond to Marvel Rivals. They're making a number of changes to the game. They're adding back a 5v5 mode, so that's very interesting. More classic Overwatchy stuff. I think it was. I think it's kind of funny because that's what Overwatch used to be. And then it went 6v6, and then, or did it go? Am I thinking of it in the reverse order? It's 6v6 right now, and it was 5v5.
Yeah,
No.
maybe.
Now I've
Hold on.
confused myself. Do some research on this for me, Phil.
Uh,
But I find it funny that they're going 5v5 when Marvel Rivals is 6v6. So I think that's pretty funny. But the big thing that people are talking about is Overwatch is adding loot boxes back. And people are kind of torn about this. And I don't know. I would say at this point in the game industry, I think it's fine. They are the ones who started the loot box craze that I've hated so much. And now they're bringing it back. So I don't know. I kind of like loot boxes if they're done appropriately. But if they're just a big cash grab, a gambler's cash grab, then I'm not interested. But I do know that some streamers are going back to Overwatch. So let's see if it has reignited any flames there. Any?
it looks like Overwatch launched with 6v6.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
So now they're 5v5.
So now they're currently 5v5, and then in season 14 and 15, they brought back some 6v6 tests. So,
I see. Okay.
yeah.
All right. I had the numbers backwards. Thank you for looking that up. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
What are the odds that you will ever play Overwatch again?
Uh, does Marvel Rivals still exist in this scenario?
Yes.
0%.
Okay. Wow.
Listen. I loved Diva. I loved Junkrat, and all of the other wonderful characters who I deeply remember. But none of them are Spider-Man or Wolverine or the Incredible Hulk, so
Yeah, it's
they
true.
can get bent, I guess.
Yeah, the source material, I don't think they're coming back just because of the source material advantage
Yeah.
with Marvel Rivals. So, yeah.
And Marvel Rivals is really nailing their character, like, oh, this is what it would feel like to play this character in this type of game. And I think Overwatch they did great with theirs as well, but they are also just creating so many new characters at this point, and it feels like the direction they've gone in is one that I'm like, sure, great, sounds fun if you like that, but I like superheroes, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I get you. All right. Well, let's dive into our main topic. So, an interesting story came out recently about The Last of Us Online, a game that many people were looking forward to, and many people honestly didn't know really what it was. They didn't know if it was a mode that was coming to The Last of Us Part 2. They didn't know if it was its own standalone game that was going to be sold. And it turns out the game was actually going to be a full live service game that ended up getting canceled. And there's multiple reasons for this. But after Sony acquired Bungie They had Bungie give them some advice and some help for what they would need to do for a live service online Last of Us game. And they decided that they could not undertake that amount of work because they needed to shift their focus over to Intergalactic, the game that we got the trailer for at the Game Awards most recently. And so, yeah, this is very interesting. I didn't realize this was going to be a live service game, and I'm bummed that Bungie talked them out of it, especially because, like, I don't know that Bungie knows what they were doing at that point. I think that they were just riding the high of what they had created 10 years ago, and I don't really know that they were like the masters of the live service anymore, just because they're still alive. You know what I mean? So
yeah, Bungie's like, you're gonna have to make an in-universe Everstore. You're gonna have to make new loading ship or new ships that you'll only see on loading screens, and make them all the ugliest thing you've ever seen. You're gonna have to make guns, then get rid of them, then bring them back, and you can't change anything for 10 years. And poor Naughty Dog was like, oh, we don't want to do that. We'd rather make a good game. Let's just make a single player game.
Yeah, I'm disappointed by this, because I feel like if they were afraid of the undertaking of such a big project, like, give it to another studio or something like that. Or here's a crazy idea: don't make it a live service game. Stop making a live service game. Just give us a $20-$30. This is Last of Us multiplayer, or like if you bought Last of Us Part 2, you can get a discounted version of Last of Us multiplayer instead of canning it because Bungie told you to do all these crazy things that it's like they're nowhere near similar games, not even close. And even like the way that the Last of Us 1's multiplayer was set up with factions, it's just like, it was built like an older multiplayer structure where it's like, it's team deathmatch, but it's the Last of Us spin on team deathmatch. It's King of the Hill, except it's Last of Us version of King of the Hill. And so you could have done that, and you could have like had a progression system and an upgrade system. And, if you wanted put in a store to make some money, put in a store to make some money. But there was never this expectation that it's like, we're going to make The Last of Us online forever. And it feels like that's the advice that they got from Bungie. It's like, well, you want this game to go on for 10 years, right? And it's like, no. We just want something fun and good.
We make new games every now and again.
Crazy, right? So, yeah.
I'm like, we don't get it. You can Halo or you can Destiny, but you can't do anything else.
Yeah, I'm disappointed by this. I really would have liked to have played this. I really liked factions in The Last of Us 1, and I did like, looking back on it, like, you can tell that a lot of it was a little held back by the technology at the time. And I feel like the technology, especially like with SSDs and everything, you could have made a really good game. And I did not have this impossible expectation that it would be this forever live service. So I'm bummed.
Yeah.
Damn it, Bungie. Also, do something with your life, Bungie. Like,
get it together.
Get it together. But stop being the drunk guy at the end of the bar, being like, I used to be the #1 video game. This is what you got to do to be like me. And it's like, no.
Well, I guess the good thing that's the thing that's good that is interesting to me is that in all of this that's come out, because like a lot of this came out of the Shuhei Yoshida interview, and he was saying, the companies come to us with the ideas. We never really force, like, okay, it's got to be a live service, it's got to be this. That they show up and they were very excited about doing this. But I guess my next question is to you, Paul. Do you think if there was a genie that appeared and said, I can set you down one of two different timelines, you just got to tell me which one. Do you want to go to the timeline where Last of Us multiplayer, whatever this game was, exists? Or the game where we get Intergalactic Heretic of Fate? Is that, or I don't remember. But Intergalactic. Which one would you pick?
I mean, that's really hard. Like, I love Naughty Dog, so I always want to see what they're moving on to next. So I'd probably say Intergalactic. But the thing is, like, we don't know really what Intergalactic is.
True.
We don't. And, it's hard for me to throw a game I don't know what it is by one of the best video game makers in the world, into the fire just so I could play Last of Us multiplayer. So yeah, I mean, I'd rather have Intergalactic, but again, it's like I feel like you could have given this to another team. Give it to another team in the Sony umbrella. Naughty Dog has licensed other games. I know it's been a while, but they licensed the Jack series. We got Jack X out of it. We got the Daxter PSP game out of it. You could have handed this off to someone instead of just taking it out back. So, just saying. Just saying.
It's true.
So yeah. But yeah, I mean, okay. Let's. What do you think would have been different in The Last of Us Online versus factions that we had in the first Last of Us game? How does the multiplayer look different? Is it an open world multiplayer game? Is it like The Division, or is it still like matchmaking? Like, what are we thinking?
I would say the thing that would be most interesting to me, so that's what I'm going to base it on, is something kind of akin to Rust.
Okay.
Where you are playing, it's not obviously like server based, but you are playing like with clans that kind of give you your version of like Jackson. You have your little city bases, and outside of that, like to go get resources, to go get weapons, to go get like upgrades, you have to go out to the world and do kind of like either multiplayer missions or sort of PvE missions with your team.
Sure.
But then you keep coming back to your city. Occasionally it gets assaulted. You have to fight it off. Blah, blah, blah. But like a game that is part survival, part multiplayer, and a little bit of PvE, just to make it really feel like The Last of Us. So you can kind of form those bonds with other online characters.
Sure. So kind of like all those like mobile zombie games that like as advertised are like, you're going to set up your own camp. And then when you download it, it's garbage.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like have a little hub, but like going on missions is like matchmaking and stuff like that. So yeah. I think that
honestly, if you set it out of Jackson in the time between Last of Us 1 and 2, and like occasionally you're interacting with Tommy or Joel or Ellie, and getting missions from them, I'm sold.
Yeah, I think that would have been great. That's a great idea. We should call him up.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Hold on, Naughty Dog. Put down the intergalactic pen. I've got an idea.
All right. Well, I think that's.
What about you? Do you have a pitch for like what they would do? Like, any.
I mean, I think that's a pretty solid idea. I would say, I mean, I wouldn't really want it as a live service, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so I would probably just I really like the matchmaking. I think this kind of goes against what I usually go for, but it's like, I think you could have kind of like a Fortnite mode where it's like you're dropped or in this area and you have to search for things. Except unlike Fortnite, you're not going to find an RPG. You find scissors and tape and like all this. And so it's about dropping in, crafting stuff, seeing what you can get away with, or something like that.
You open a glowing chest and there's just a bat with shards of glass in it.
Yeah. And it's like, I think
that a lot.
I would have liked an old school multiplayer mode where it's like you have that mode, you have like a classic playlist, which is just team deathmatch, King of the Hill, escort the thing, or something like that, and then maybe like a Call of Duty Zombies mode. I think Last of Us, come on, like let's go. I would love a Call of Duty Zombies mode, especially because the zombies I know the new COD zombie. They got crazy zombies now and bosses and all that stuff. But I would have loved to see that in the Last of Us universe, where we're just trying to like hold this house. So yeah, I'd probably keep it classic, but maybe that's a bit dated, and I'm dating myself.
There's some spores in this house. There's some spores in this house. There's some spores in this house.
Yeah,
I got these wet ass clickers.
Big
great.
man blast. Okay, great. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there for this week's episode of the GGG Podcast, episode 67. Thank you for joining us. As always, if you haven't already liked and subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. And if you're listening to the audio-only version on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can follow us over there as well. We really appreciate it. We'll be back next week, coming to the end of February, looking at Assassin's Creed coming into March. And then we're probably going to have a bit of a dry spell. Oh, you know what I forgot about? Monster Hunter Wilds comes out next week. Oh my goodness. Well, we're definitely going to be talking about that. So
I'm going to be on a cruise. I leave the day it comes out. Paul.
What? I know.
I kind of want to not go.
I'd
kind of just rather kill Rathalos all day. Just bring my PlayStation. Hi.
Well, I guess it'll be awkward because then I'll be the one who has to talk about Monster Hunter when we get back. So. All right. Well, we're going to end it there. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye.